Now we have the dinner symposium. Here in Hall A, we have the Asahi Symposium, which is on Know Your Hardware. I request the chairpersons, Dr. C.K. Baiju, as well as Dr. Prakash Virparik, to come forward and occupy the chair. There are a couple of announcements. In Hall B, we have the Stingray Crossbow Symposium from the Boston Scientific. So that will be starting parallel to this symposium. And may I request the chairpersons, Dr. C.K. Baiju and Prakash, to come over? They are here. And in Hall B, the lecture by Dr. Arun is actually a webcast, so he'll be talking through Skype, his US experience with the Stingray Crossbow system. So can I, yeah, can I invite Dr. Sanjeev, please, Dr. Sanjeev Roy, to talk us on Fielder series? Yeah, thank you. Program schedule we have? Okay, we can keep it. Sanjeev has to go to the Hall B after this. So you please tell him to go there. Thank you.
Good evening. As we come towards the last session of the day, that is the dinner symposium, this session is basically dedicated to know your hardwares that you have been using in CTO. And at the end of the day, when you have seen so many live cases using all these hardwares, I think my work is half done. So today I'm going to discuss about the Fielder series. If you look at what's the basic structure of the Fielder wire is, it's a one-piece core wire where the platinum core extends from the proximal to the distal tip. The advantages is this helps in transmitting the torque fully from one end to the other, almost like a 1:1 torque. You have a jointless spring coil, here, where there is a smooth transition of this torque right from the platinum core to the stainless steel. And finally, you have a hydrophobic coating with the polymer sleeves. What it does is it smoothens the wire, making it more trackable and helping you to advance the wire in a more tortuous vessel. Of the Fielder series, what you have is the Fielder XT, Fielder FC, and the Fielder wire. The Fielder FC and the Fielder wire, they are more of a polymer wire. They have a 12 centimeter spring tip coil, and it's almost 22 centimeter polymer sleeve with the slip coat. This is more used in lesions where you need more trackability. While the Fielder XT is more of a dedicated CTO wire, where you can look at the tip, it's 0.009, and the tip load is only 0.8 gram compared to the tip load as in the Fielder wire. So if you look at basically the Fielder XT wire series, it has a very tapered tip of 0.009 inch. This facilitates trackability of the wire in very tortuous vessel, even including the fine septal corkscrew channels. It has a flat core tip, which provides flexibility and excellent shaping of the memory. It has a very smooth tapered core, which enhances support performance and provides excellent trackability of the wire. And more importantly, it has a 16 centimeter radio pick length, which helps you identify the entire guide wire under fluoroscopy, even when you are tracking through the fine septal channels where contrast media cannot reach well. So Fielder XT again has evolved over a period of time into two ends, like Fielder XT-A and Fielder XT-R. A was originally for the antegrade and R for the retrograde. The difference between the two is the R has a tip load of 0.6, while the XT-A has a tip load of 1 gram. So basically, A was meant for more crossability, while XT-R was more for the trackability. However, looking at the trackability, it has almost replaced the use of Fielder XT wire. So wherever we were using Fielder XT, it is now mainly that we are using the Fielder XT-R. So this is what the Fielder XT has evolved with the same composite core, It has more crossability in the filter XTA and more trackability in the filter XTR. Additionally, you can look at here, they have this Iontech technology where there is an anti-kinking structure, and this double coil structure at the tip gives it enhanced durability and torque transmission without getting kinked. So what is the advantage of this composite core? What you can see here is the whip core effect, whipping motions. So if you look at the red line in the graph, that's a straight one, the ideal one where it should be. The blue line is what the filter XT usually is. It has more whip motion than the filter XT and the XTR and the XTA, which has of lesser whip motions. So this advantage is, again, it has a very, tip durability is much more. Supposing you have a knuckle formation at the tip, the filter XTA and XTR almost comes back to the normal shape as against the usual filter XT wire. Also the polymer jacket, as you can see here, this is the electron microscopic view. This reduces the resistance, and it has almost reduced the resistance by about 70% for these wires. So there has been a remarkable progression from the filter XT to filter XTA and filter XTR. And just to summarize, you have a tip load of 0.6 in the filter XTR, and filter XT has 1 gram. The tip diameter in the filter XT is 0.009, which tapers down from the shaft of 0.014, while of those of XTR and XTA remains about 0.010. So basically, when you need a better performance to cross an occluded lesion, the filter XTA scores over the others. But if you need a more trackable one, it is the filter XTR. So filter XTR has better performance for channel tracking. Now this is how you control the wire. The wire control could be passive. This is basically meant for loose tissue that is intimal, the luminal tracking. And you can see here, the wire movement is by rotation, and a push force which can be generated by the left hand or even with the torque, the hand that you are using the torquer. While the other way is active wire control, where you change the wire direction to the direction that you want. And this is almost because of the platinum core extending right up to the tip, where you can get the transmission of 1:1 of your torque. So how do you select your wire in which kind of CTO lesions that you want? To understand that, you have to have basic understanding of the histopathological process of CTO formation. And if you look at when the CTO lesion starts, over a period of time, the thrombus forms and it extends proximally to the level of the side branch. And this makes the, it's a blunt trip entry of that. And over a period of time, the proximal cap and the distal cap hardens, becomes more fibrotic, as also the core in the CTO lesions. So in the shorter duration CTO, you have highly fibrotic plaque with calcification, although there are microchannels with organized thrombus. While in the longer duration CTO, it is more dense calcium, and that microchannels may disappear. So this is the vessel heterogeneity. If you look at this cross-section area of the entire CTO segment, you find areas of fibrosis, areas of loose tissues, areas of calcification and necrosis in different segments in the different part. So this is an example of an animated view. If you have a shorter segment, there is of lesser heterogeneity. But if you have a longer segment, you expect to be more heterogeneous plaque. With the fair understanding of histopathological of the chronic total occlusion, a very careful angiographic analysis is the key, and this is complemented if you have additional CT angiographic view and IVUS views of the lesions if you have. So this is how, on the left side, you can see here the calcium, which is better depicted, the length of the calcium, the distribution of the calcium on CT. You have the IVUS, which gives you a fair idea about the side of the lesion, how to approach the lesion. And finally, of course, you have the angiographic views. So what way the contemporary approach should be? Now, if you look at, there are three ways we have to do. We have to approach the proximal cap, we have to penetrate the body, and finally we have to penetrate the distal cap. So when it comes to proximal cap, what we look for is to palpate the cap, look for a microchannel, and if the proximal cap is hard enough, maybe you have to use more penetrating wire. So most often it has been seen that the proximal cap, there are lesions which are almost 90-95% stenosis, and only about 22% of the cases that is totally occluded, very hard fibrotic cap, but elsewhere, in most of the cases, about 70-75% of the cases, you find the proximal cap, maybe after palpation, you might find some microchannels. Now this is how the histopathological lesion of the proximal cap looks like. And then on basis of the tactile perception, when you hit the proximal cap with a wire, you can easily find out whether you need a more penetrating wire, you can serve the microchannels and cross through with the wire. So basically proximal cap, whether to palpate or penetrate, basic idea is to find a space or make a space. Now if you have a tapered proximal cap, as you see in the left side diagram, now all you need is a tip load polymer jacketed wire. On the other hand, the second one, the wiring, it is a blunt proximal cap, so you need a more penetrating wire. Now it could be a situation where the next third diagram is where you have a wiring loose tissue within the CTO, where after penetrating the cap, you might switch over to more, lesser tip load wire. And the last one, where you have a calcified segments or a blunt distal cap, again you need to re-escalate your strategy to penetrate the wire. So this is how the proximal cap wiring, you need a very soft tip polymer wire, and if the complexity is more, you can go for more medium weight polymer wires. Now this is an example here. You can look at the distal CTO has almost a subtotal occlusion. Now look at, while I'm using a whisper wire, my wire is knuckling down. I'm not able to track much. I escalated the wire to a pilot 50, again the same strategy. Now here, if you look at, it's a very tapered tip. All I need is to find and serve the microchannel. So with that wire in position, I'm using now a Fielder XTR, and you can look at how I can track the small channel and enter into the distal PDA. Having done that, things were easy. I dilate the lesion, wire both the branches, deploy this was a absorbable stent, and after that, I do a mini casing balloon dilatation, and this was the final result. So selection of wire at this point was very important. What I needed is a to serve the microchannel, a soft polymer wire with a low tip load. So if you have a blunt cap, again this blunt cap, again you need a little bit more penetrating. Sometimes if it is not that fibrotic, you can use the Fielder XTA, but if it is more fibrotic and calcified, you need even wire as stiffer as the Confianza Pro. What about the body? Having penetrated the cap, sometimes the body is composed of very loose tissues. So you need to sometimes de-escalate your wire. Again, if you have penetrated with, let's say, Confianza or a Miracle 12 or a Gaia 3, to serve the body of the CTO, you may de-escalate your wire. Again, the softer wire plays a role. Now look at this one. Again, this is a strategy which we call it escalate, de-escalate strategy. Now here you can see this was more of a fibrotic cap which was penetrated with, this was pilot 200, crossed the proximal cap, and then de-escalated to Fielder XTR, and it surfing the entire things, including the distal caps, becomes very easy. And this was followed by stenting of the lesion. Over microcatheter, this was changed to conventional BMW wire, and the procedure was completed with 3 stents using a decay crush technique in the LED diagonal proximally. And the last contemporary approach is the distal cap, where again, sometimes it might be very stiffer. Having navigated through the entire, you might need to either sometimes escalate to a more stiffer wire, or you might even be successful because sometimes the distal cap is very soft. You might be able to penetrate with your usual filter wire. But this was, again, a retrograde approach. After, you can see here the blunt, the proximal cap of the CTO and the RCA very close to the osteo. And it had a good septal collateral coming from the distal LED. And this is, I'm using a Fielder XTR. The tracking of this was very easy. And I could enter almost more than 50% of the CTO lesion. Having done that, there was too much of resistance. So push the crosshair more proximally through the retrograde approach. I had to escalate to the Gaia 3, and then rest was easy, penetrating the proximal cap, externalizing, and this was how it was done. In the last shot, you can look at there is a pigtail. I had a perforation, and patient had a tamponade, which had to be aspirated during the procedure. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjeev, for an excellent presentation. And can you just elaborate on the basic differences in the use of XTA versus XTR in practical scenarios?
See, XTA actually was originally meant for antegrade approach when you have more, you need more tip load. Otherwise, both tip are of same shape. It is almost 0.8 gram, tip, while it is a 0.6 gram tip for this. Both are tapered. So what I prefer is if you have to serve the micro channels nowadays, more preferred wire is to go for an XTR. But if you have more fibrotic tissue in the proximal cap, I'll rather prefer an XTA to navigate through the proximal cap.
Yeah, and another important point to add on is actually basically field a series of wires. The feedback while wiring is basically not tactile. It is basically visual. So especially with Fielder XTR, one may not be getting a tactile feedback on the hand during the wiring, and it's basically visual feedback. That's one of the points which I would like to highlight.
That's right.
And this wire should not be used for the penetration of the lesion and for the intentional control.
If there are no more questions, we'll go to the next presentation by Dr. Sunitha Vishwanathan on miracle and congress series. Dr. Kenya Nasu won't be able to make it now because he is still in the live case. Can we invite Madam? Yeah.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I'd like to thank Dr. Pratap and Dr. Ganesh for giving me this opportunity. There will be a lot of overlap between my slide and the previous speaker's slide because I think both of us have acquired the material from CTO 2017. Okay, so this has already been shown. It's a very heterogeneous material that you see in the CTO. It could be fibrous. Some areas should be calcific. Sometimes you have loose tissue in between. So depending upon what is predominant, you may have to choose your wire. Now, anatomy, as has been mentioned earlier, is most commonly defined by angiogram, but that is not enough. You can see that CT angio would certainly be helpful in dealing with CTOs and IVAs, of course. Now, the wires that we use for CTO are basically task-specific. So, at the outset, you will need access to the CTO, the proximal cap, and for that you can use any wire to take your microcatheter out there. And then you may need a directed penetration with the stiff wires about which we are going to talk, or you may have to engage the microchannels for which you may require a tapering wire with polymer coating, or you may be asked to do a collateral crossing, or you may have fenestration and re-entry to be done, or sometimes you have a knuckling to be performed and externalization. So these are the different facets of CTO wiring, and based on the task, you will have to choose your wire. Now the menu is quite elaborate. I just wanted to put up this slide to show that the wires vary based upon the composition of their core, whether they are tapering core, whether you have a core to tip design, depending upon the shaping ribbon that is there, and so many things. So, and whether it is tapering, that is also extremely important, and the covers, whether it's a polymer or whether there is a hydrophilic jacket, etc. Now, let's come to the torque response of the different wires. Now, you can see that if you take the Miracle wire, you find that the torque response is the least. The Miracle 3, you can see, is the least. Now, if you take the other wires, particularly the Conquest Pro and the Gaia 3 and all the other series, you find better torque response. So that is important. Now, second is the tip flexibility or the tip stiffness of the given wire. You can see that the Gaia 1, 2, and 3 have less tip stiffness. The Ultimate Bros is 1.3. The Miracle 12 has the highest tip stiffness, and Conquest Pro is slightly less than that. Conquest Pro 12 is slightly less than that, and Conquest Pro is 4.2. Now let's look at the penetrating force of the CTO wires. Now what is penetrating force? That is the tip load by the tip area. So when you have a thinner area at the tip, or a smaller area at the tip, you find that the pushing force or the penetrating force will be much more. So if you look at in terms of maximum penetrating force, I think the best is the Confianza Pro 12, and it is followed by the Progress T200 wire. And the Progress wires, of course, all of them have high tip loads. And the Gaia, if you look, the tip force, the penetrating force is much less compared to the other wires. And the Miracle 12 has a tip force of 80, I think, kg per inch squared. Now, I think today we have seen a lot of cases where Crusade has been used instead of a microcatheter. And what is the impact of Crusade on the pushing force on the wire? Now, if you look, in fact, I was very fascinated by this slide. We see the Gaia second. The Gaia second with a microcatheter has a tip force of 1.5, whereas if you take it through a Crusade, the tip force increases to 6.4. So this is a very practical point, I think, because oftentimes you try to penetrate with a Gaia 2, you find it doesn't succeed. And we waste a wire which costs 9,000 rupees. So I think if you use a Crusade, you may be able to penetrate with the Gaia 2 itself. And the Conquest Pro, look at this, over a microcatheter, it is 1.6 force per this thing, whereas with over a Crusade, it becomes 13.5. So the Crusade really increases the pushing force of the microcatheter. Now, as the complexity of the lesion increases from JCTO 0 to JCTO 5, you can see that you find that antigrade wire escalation. The black one is the antigrade. I have a pointer here. Anyway, you see that as the complexity increases, it is not possible to succeed with antigrade wire escalation. You may have to resort to other strategies. Yeah, you can see here. So this is JCTO 0 to JCTO 5. You can see that as the complexity of the lesion increases, the proportion of cases which are going to succeed with antigrade wire escalation is quite low. And you may have to resort to antigrade dissection and re-entry or retrograde techniques. So just one slide. Now the wires, with the standard wires about which, the penetration wires are the Miracle Bros as well as the Conquest Pro. The Miracle wires are available in 3.5, 4.5 gram, 6 gram and 12 gram. We heard in the morning that Miracle wires are almost not being used now. But a couple of times we do use the Miracle 6 gram. For direct penetration, the Miracle 6 gram is a very useful wire. Now, coming to the structure of the Miracle wire, you can see that the Miracle wire, as I mentioned earlier, comes in all these tip strengths, and it has got a PTFE coating. You can see here there's a PTFE coating over the shaft, and it has got a spring coil of around 11 centimeters. Now, what is the advantage of a spring coil? The spring coil gives you the tactile feedback. So that's the advantage of a spring coil. However, it interferes with the trackability. Now, if you go to the ultimate bros, again you find here, it has got a hydrophilic slip coat over around, I think 40 centimeter. You can see here, long slip coat is there. So what does the hydrophilic slip coat do? It increases the lubricity of the wire and therefore helps in trackability. So that is the advantage of this wire. Now, confianza, let's come to confianza wires. Now, is it English or Greek? Actually, I looked up and it's a Latin American form. It's a term derived from Latin American. It's used for mutual reciprocity. So, in the context of interpersonal relationships, its presence indicates that both parties recognize and honor the relationship by extending specially favorable treatment. So, the Confianza Pro, now you have the Confianza Pro, and you have the Confianza Pro 12. Now, all of them are tapered wires. So, what is the advantage of being tapered? I mentioned earlier, the pushing force will be much higher, and it has got a PTFE coating over the shaft, and you have spring coils as well. So, spring coils will actually again increase the, give you better tactile feedback. Now, the Confianza Pro 9 gram, look at 9 gram, there is a 20 centimeter spring coil, 20 centimeter spring coil, of which 0.1 millimeter is hydrophobic actually. So you get a little more tactile feedback as well. Now this is the Confianza Pro 12 gram. So the tip load of 12 grams means excellent penetration capability, and it gives good tactile feedback as well. So Miracle 12 and Conquest 12 gram, it is used basically to penetrate the proximal and the distal cap. You can crush a hard plaque in the CTO body, and to penetrate from the true to the from the pseudo lumen to the true lumen also it may be useful. Now you know that integrate true lumen to true lumen wiring. There is a situation where these two wires have been used technically. So you can start off with this is what earlier traditional wire escalation from Pilot 50 to 200, then Miracle 6 gram, 12 gram, and then you go on to the Confianza Pro 12 gram. However, the 3 F's of wire escalation is that you may have to go on doing this forever, and failure rates are higher, and photons means it's very elemental. Now this has already been showed. So very important to palpate the proximal cap, and you find space and make space, and then you do penetrate and then go through the body. And in this situation, when you have a hard proximal cap, it is good to use either the Conquest Pro or the Miracle 12 gram wire. And this has been mentioned already. Okay. So an approach to integrate true to true wiring, most important is that if there is a true CTO and no microchannel, you can do a directed penetration. And for this, the distal vessel has to be visible. So that is the most important thing. If you want to do a directed penetration, you have to see the distal vessel. Now, if there are microchannels, you can use a soft jacketed wire. That's not my area of topic. Now, Miracle 6 gram, it's more controllable, basically because of the spring coils, and it can penetrate tough proximal cap. It can be used to advance in CTO with a bend, because of the tactile feedback, and again to puncture from false lumen to true lumen. So when to avoid concave wires? Basically in long CTOs, in very long CTOs, don't use it. And also when you're trying to seek the lumen, when you're just trying to seek the lumen, don't use it. You should use it only when you can see the distal cap. Now this is one case. This was an instant restenosis of the circumflex coronary artery, and this is a total occlusion of the circumflex. Small microchannel filling OM as well as the distal circ. Now just microcatheter which is platformed at the proximal cap. And then we tried to cross with the Gaia 2, so we didn't succeed. I didn't know that a Crusade would have done the job. So I had to change the Gaia 2 to a Miracle 6 gram. So with the 6 gram wire, I crossed it. And then, you know, the microcatheter also I was able to push forward and then exchange to a BMW wire. And then after serial pre-dilatations and then stented. This is the final result. Patient did well. Now this is a 73-year-old lady with a previous history of an old inferior wall myocardial infarction with class 3 angina. You can see that the RCA is totally occluded. You can see multiple collateral channels with You can see the distal cap very well, but a lot of collateral channels. I used an Amplatz left guide catheter, platformed a microcatheter there, tried with a Miracle 4.5 gram, it did not cross, couldn't cross. So partly penetrated, and then finally I took a Conquest Pro 9, and with that we were able to cross the lesion, and then finally changed to a BMW wire and did the job. So Miracle and Conquest wires can be dangerous tools, but they are useful in very crunch situations of extremely hard proximal fibrous, CTOs, of very hard CTOs. They are true penetration wires. Thanks for your kind attention.
Thank you, madam, for an excellent presentation. Now, Conquest series, what do you think about Conquest 820, madam?
Pardon me?
Conquest Pro 820. This is available in India, and we can use it in some cases in which actually we want the maximum penetration force, Conquest 820. This is available for the last 2-3 years.
You're not audible.
Conquest Pro 820.
Oh, that's a new wire.
Yeah, no, this has been there in India for the last 2-3 years.
Okay.
And this is the one with the maximum penetration power as far as the CTO wires are concerned as of now.
What is the tip load?
It is around 820. The taper is 008 and 20 gram.
In fact, once or twice I have used a Conquest Pro 20. That is not available now, I think.
It is
20
available.
gram.
Madam, there is a wire called Conquest Pro 940. Yesterday there was a presentation shown by, I think 940 was the wire used by Kenyan Asu. It showed in one case 940. 40 grams is that much wire is available. They use especially in calcified CTO or retrograde.
Maybe only for the Japanese.
940 is not available in India, I think.
But you need good control of yourself and your hand when you're using these stiff wires.
Any comment from the floor? Thank you, madam, for an excellent presentation. We'll go to the next presentation by Dr. Sumit Suchi. We invite you for the talks.
Oh, thank you. So I'm going to talk about the microcatheters. And then there are several microcatheters available, microcatheters in Japan. And then also in the world, the fine cross is very popular from the Terumo company. And the Corsair also. Corsair changed the world of the CTO intervention. And the next one is the Carabel. Carabel will soon come into the Indian market, I heard from the Asahi Intake company staff. So you can use the Carabel, the microcatheter soon. And what is the difference? Corsair and then Carabel and then the fine cross. Of course, already you know the advantage of the Corsair. Corsair is much bigger. Much bigger means more torque and more pushable, more transmission power from the hand to the tip. That is very important. And Carabel is much more smaller. Smaller means flexible, less transmission ratio compared to the Corsair, but smaller, that means less resistance. And then the fine cross. Actually, I'm sorry, this is a session of the Asahi Intake, but my most favorite, personal favorite microcatheter is fine cross, because the fine cross is more smaller. And then I'm the 6-inch guiding catheter user, usually, so fine cross is more easy to use with a 6-inch. Fine cross and the Carabel, we can advance 2 microcatheters in the 6-inch guiding catheter same time, no problem. But the Corsair, we cannot put the 2 Corsairs in the 6-inch guiding catheter. So the resistance and the deformation, that is a difference. What makes the characteristics difference makes difference in the real case? We think that our microcatheter must advance. This is the figure, the same of the retrograde, the CTO intervention. So our microcatheter going through the aorta and going through the coronary and going through the channel. Most important point is how much pushing force we can give to the tip of the microcaster. That is how to say, there is a power, that is a situation. Microcaster go in, that means the tip of the microcaster pushing force bigger than the resistance. This is the mechanics, physics, very easy, the simple. But the problem is, our pushing force is not equal to the pushing force at the tip. So there's the transmission loss. Transmission loss depends on the resistance with the corsair, depends on the more deformation with the caravel. This is a very key point. And how much we lost in the transmission, we can assess. How to do it? That is very simple. Just moving the microcaster tip just in front of the CTO distal end. That means that in the distal tool lumen, and then move it. This is based on the Newtonian mechanics. Newton said, as you know, if the power, same power, the balance of power, getting on the any subject, the subject is stop or moving constant speed. So that means if we can move the subject with a constant speed, that means that this power and this weight is same. Okay? So that means when you try to advance the microcaster tip in the distal tool lumen, never touch the tip to the total occlusion. Okay? Just free from the region in the tip and move the pushing with constant speed. We need some pushing force to move the microcaster. Okay? This pushing force is total of the resistance from the hand to the tip of the microcaster. If you move in the microcaster before the channel, that is much easier. And if you move in the microcaster, just the exit of the guiding caster, almost no power needed to move it. That means in the guiding caster, much less resistance. And in the coronary, some resistance we have. And after through the microchannel, that is much resistance. This is the assessment way to check the resistance. And after thinking about this one, which catheter is better? We can get easily the answer. So now I try to show some case. Actually, this is today's my live case. You don't know the end of the result for this circumflex. But for the circumflex, corsair was very nice. I'm sorry, I missed talking just only one second. So mainly, I use a corsair for Untitled because more pushing but more resistance. But in the Untitled, there's not so much resistance part from the tip of the guiding caster to CTO. Caravel, smaller and less resistance, but of course less pushing. The more the transmission loss compared to the corsair. But smaller, less resistance, so very good for the retrograde. This is the key point. And then today's case. This is a circumflex. I finally succeeded with the Untitled. You can see very tortuous. Some tortuosity and again tortuous and again tortuous. This kind of situation, I try to advance the wire. I skip some image. And then, of course, starting with a fine cross. This is my personal favorite. And then the wire, soft wire getting down because some channel there. So my wire come to here. This is a Sion or something. And then I try to advance the fine cross. But the fine cross stop because this is the resistance. Of course, this is inside the total occlusion. And then this fine cross is more flexible. Flexible means more bending, more the deform. That is making the loss of the pushing force. So finally, the total occlusion, remaining total occlusion, very short, from here to here. This is the final part, but the final part, that is a tough, and we need the changing the guide wire to the more stiff wire, but microcaster is here. Microcaster still here. You can see the almost 90-degree curve here. When we change to the stiff wire, what will be happen? That is a wire easily make the dissection, force lumen tracking from this 90-degree curve. So I must advance the microcaster beyond this angle. Then finally I change to the Corsair, and the Corsair coming down more. You can see the very difficult to see, but this is a Corsair. Corsair tip already beyond this bending. Another very advantage, strong point of the Corsair is Corsair tip is very flexible. So this is a very important advantage point. And then finally, I could change the wire. This is Corsair. Corsair beyond, completely cross this curvature. And then finally, I changed the wire to the stiff wire. Conquest Pro, failure, and the Conquest Pro 12. And the Conquest Pro 12, this is still Conquest, and going the wrong way, and change to the Conquest Pro. This is a safely we can change the wire to the stiff wire because this bending already covered by the microcaster tip. Then finally advance into the good way. And then get into the side branch. This is the timing with the wire go in, and then check it. This is going to the side branch. So cross and the side branch. And then finally, we got a very nice result, like this. The very important key point of this success is advancing a microcaster beyond this curvature, and then safely can change to the stiffer wire. So this situation, I surely recommend to use the Corsair, because Corsair is a pushable, tip is very flexible, we can change the guide wire. Next case is retrograde. Very tortuous, angulated epicardial AV groove channel. So this one also using fine cross, but not the older version. Right now we have the new version of the fine cross in Japan, and this one is my hand carry, hand fine cross, and fine cross advance here, and then the tip injection shows a very, very difficult but connected epicardial channel. And then advance the wire using the SWO 03, and the final part negotiated with Sion. But anyway, this is okay. This presentation is not focusing on the wire. So finally, wire pass through, but fine cross stuck here. Fine cross beyond this curvature, but stuck. Okay, what is the next? I just tried with the Corsair, but the Corsair have more pushing force, more nice transmission. However, bigger size. Bigger size can make some more resistance, so Corsair cannot pass through. Stuck at the point of the almost same point with the fine cross. Then I changed to the Caravelle. You can see the Caravelle going, and then one stuck here, but more pushing, guiding cutter moving. This is showing the limitation of the backup force. So I set the guiding cutter again, then Caravelle going and passing through. This is the Caravelle. So this kind of a situation, I think the Caravelle is the best selection. With the passing through the channel with the microcaster, almost CTO is not a CTO. Almost around 100% success guaranteed. And this case also, we did a nicely revascularized like this. We can save the very nice, the light cornery safely with Caravel microcaster. So again, my recommendation is integrate Corsair retrograde Caravel. Another final point I want to talk to you is coil compatibility. This is already I talked yesterday, but again, I want to talk because this is very important. This is a Cook, I'm sorry, I don't show the company name, but the Cook coil. That is a very popular coil. I can get anywhere in the world. And then the number, catalog number is this one. Important point here, 18S. 18S means compatible for the Zeppelin 0818. And actually, this is the spec size of the microcaster fine cross, and the Caravel is smaller than this one, but it is compatible. As I talked yesterday, I tried more than 100, almost 200, more than 200 coils with a fine cross and sometimes a Caravel. 100% success deliver. So don't worry about this type of the coiling with a fine cross and Caravel. Caravel is small resistance at the time of the final release, but it's okay. We can release. But be noted, Corsair, impossible. Impossible means not only the impossible, because after advancing a coil inside the Corsair, at the beginning, that's okay. Coil going, and stuck around here. That means we cannot advance the wire again. What we can do is all the Corsair out. And then, if that is really bleeding, everything out makes more bleeding. And the stopping is more difficult because we have to do, again, the rewiring. But sometimes the rewiring is not easy. So be careful. There's a difference. It is another important. So final message from me is both Corsair and Caravel is a quite high-level microcaster. We are very happy we can use this kind of the high-level microcaster. But there is a difference, mainly in size, and which makes the difference in the transmission loss and the resistance. So understand and make the nice choice for each situation. Thank you for your attention.
I have one question. In the integrated approach, how do you select between the fine cross and Caravel? In which conditions Caravel will be more useful compared to fine cross?
Actually, in the Integrate, there's not much the difference between them in the beginning. So if you are familiar with the fine cross, you can use the fine cross. But the fine cross if the fine cross cannot go in, at the time the change into the Corsair. So that means that maybe the Corsair, beginning with the Corsair is good. But if you use a 6-inch guiding caster, Corsair makes a limitation with the options. We cannot do the two Corsairs or two Corsairs, the one fine cross, one Caravel into the 6-inch guiding caster, so cannot do it. At the time, maybe the Caravel or fine cross is a better choice. But that depends on. For me, they're starting with the fine cross. And if fine cross stuck, change to the Corsair or mainly Corsair in the Integrate.
Could you please elaborate on the difference in the technique of manipulation of both the catheters, Caravel versus regarding the rotation of the catheter?
Yes, very, very, very important. Thank you for your question. Corsair, we can usually rotate. And rotate makes a nice support for the advance in the Corsair, but the Caravel never rotate. Because the component is quite different. Looks Caravel and the Corsair is just difference in the size, but the inside is more different. So never rotate with the Caravel. We have the not small number, trouble with a color bell because of the rotating. Japanese doctor want to do rotate. Even the company say do not, but they did it and they trouble. So please do not rotate the color bell. Color bell just push. Corsair rotate. Thank you so much. That is a very important point.
And you want to make some comment about Corsair Pro? Corsair Pro?
Crusado?
Corsair Pro?
Corsair
versus
Pro.
Corsair?
As I said, I'm the frequently using the fine cross, so I don't have the experience with the Corsair Pro. But they say, and in some case, Corsair Pro can pass more smoothly. But I don't do the comparison, Corsair Pro and the Corsair, so not so much can say.
Any questions from the floor?
Is it possible to use Caravelle in difficult to cross lesion in CTO or a very highly calcified lesions once you successfully cross with a wire? And if you cannot cross with a balloon, can Caravelle be used?
In the Untitled, after the failure of the balloon, Caravelle, I think almost failure. Sometimes the Corsair can pass through. And the epicardial channel is different. Sometimes even the balloon cannot pass through for the septal channel, but the Caravelle pass through. It's okay?
When there is resistance in the micro channels, how do you try to go through with the microcatheter?
I'm sorry.
When there is resistance in the micro channels, how do you take your microcatheter across?
So if using the Corsair, we can rotate more, but mainly I choose changing the microcatheter more smaller one. So when you're using the Corsair, please think about the changing the Caravelle or fine cross. And another good option is, of course, the balloon. So using the 1.0 balloon or 1.2 balloon something. And even though cannot pass through, so that is a limitation. So changing the channel is another option.
Is there any difference in trapping of all these three, microcatheter, Caravelle, and Corsair?
And then fine cross. What is the difference of?
Yeah, is it easy, difficult with Caravelle?
Just only the difference is
minimum 7
with the handling, you mean?
Trapping with balloon.
Trapping by the balloon. I don't think that there is a difference. It's okay. So just think about the size of the guiding catheter. So sometimes the Corsair having the big size, and then the stacking with the trapping balloon in the 6th range. So that is maybe the difference, but mainly, basically not so much difference.
Thank you, Dr. Sumitsuji, for a wonderful talk on the microcatheters.
Thank you so much.
We'd like to invite the next speaker, Dr. Ruji Sujita, for the next talk on newer devices in the pipeline.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ryuji Tsujita from Asahi Intake. My title today is Newer Devices in Pipeline. So I'm going to talk about what is coming next from Asahi Intake. So this is the international product pipeline. We launched Asahi Caravelle in 2015 in Europe. And last year, we launched Asahi Xeon Blue ES and Asahi Hyperion. And this year, we are going to introduce Asahi Suo 03 and also Asahi Corsair Pro. And hopefully, we would like to introduce Asahi Sasuke in 2019. How about in India? This year, we are going to launch Asahi Caravelle and Hyperion, and SUO03. And also, Asahi Corsair Pro will come up in 2018, and Sasuke will come up in 2019. So today, I'm going to introduce these three products, Asahi Caravelle, Suo, and Corsair Pro. Since I don't have much time, so my presentation will be very quick, but please be patient. So let me start from Caravelle. Caravelle is, this is the positioning map for our microcatheter series. And Caravelle, of course, can cover the occlusion lesion. But actually, this product is not designed for only for CTO. It's for tortuous and diffuse lesions, which is your all's everyday cases. So that you can choose the best one from Asahi microcatheter series to treat a wide range of your cases. Anyway, let me start the introduction. So what is the point of Caravelle? Caravelle has 3 points, and the first one is low profile. Tip is very small, and of course, the crossing profile is also small. And it has tip excellent flexibility. And finally, Act 1 is inside Caravelle. Act 1 is actually our only one technology for Sion guide wire, but this one also has the same technology inside. So the first point is the low profile. The similar picture was shown by Dr. Sumitsuji, but let me show you this again. So Caravelle is smaller than, as you see, smaller than other competitors. Although Corsair is much smaller, but Caravelle is quite small compared to the competitor. And the next point is this one has superior trackability. This is the bench test that we always do for the microcatheters. And okay, Caravelle come up from the upper left side and going through and up to here. Easily cross the channels. How about the competitors? It comes down here and up to here, but it gets stuck. Next one, also, it stopped at here. So I believe you can see the performance of Caravelle. And final point is Act 1 braiding. Act 1 is actually the technology which is inside our Sion guide wire series. And it actually maintains the lumen integrity. So as you see in the picture, Asahi Corsair, even if you bend the shaft of Corsair, Caravelle like this, the inner diameter is still the same. However, the competitors' inner lumen just get collapsed. So basically, these are the point of Caravelle, and it is coming soon in Indian market. Okay, let's move on to SUO03. SUO03 looks like this, but for this product, most important thing is this one. The tip load of this product is 0.3 gram, which is very soft. So compared to our Xeon and Xeon Blue, Xeon is 0.7, Xeon Blue is 0.5, and SUO03 is just 0.3. It is very soft. And also the tip flexibility is really flexible like this chart. So how it works on your clinical cases? For example, traditional guide wires often fail in this kind of channel with acute bend or continuous tortuosity. But by using Asahi Suo, Suo wire can get crossed easily like this. So the point of SUO03 is here. Lightest means softest market available tip load at 0.3. So actually the SUO03 means 0.3 grams, so please take note of, about that. Okay, finally I move on to Corsair Pro. Within Corsair, original Corsair, we still had a problem with this kind of severe bending collateral channel. So we wanted to overcome this kind of tortuous vessel, which is very challenging anatomy. So what we did is basically these two. Optimizing of catheter stiffness profile and removing of the coil marker. And this improved the trackability. So talking about optimization of catheter stiffness is, looks like this. The blue line is the original Corsair, which is kind of much more stiffer than Corsair Pro. And how we made it is on the next page. This is the X-ray photo of those three items. The middle one is original Corsair. And if you look at here very carefully, there is a coil marker. And Corsair Pro doesn't have it. So this one made this smooth, linear stiffness, balanced stiffness. So how about the performance? The left one is original Corsair. Oops, sorry. Okay, it gets stuck at here as a point of marker coil. But Corsair Pro smoothly get cross at the same point. Okay, so this is the Corsair Pro. This product will come up in next year, hopefully. Okay, and we are going to launch Hyperion as well, but since I'm running out of time, I just want to mention this product has a #1 market share in Japan already, so I would like to say stay tuned. Okay, I know those informations are not enough for you, but we have developed a smartphone app. So you can just scan this QR code, or you can simply go to App Store or Google Play and put Asahi Intake in. Then you can install our product information, product information apps. Thank you very much for attention.
Thank you for a very clear presentation. Any discussion?